something I really would be curious to see if people would look into this. I'm sure you're aware that the elections here in Illinois were really pretty good for Democrats. I think there were several.
The big amendment that we had spoken to the Illinois head of this AFL-CIO, that basically that will maintain the rights of unionization passed in Illinois.
That's right. And, and maybe, I guess there are kind of two things I wanted to talk about in the larger picture, because I think some of the things that we saw here in this state are something other states should replicate, because we even picked up, like in my area, I called in before. I'm actually in the Democratic infrastructure in Lake County, and we actually picked up a state House seat that they thought was supposed to be Republican. We did so well. So one of the things I noticed was the Pritzker campaign very early, and Pritzker's obviously a billionaire, which is not great, but to bolster your point about defining your candidate early, we were barraged with nonstop commercials, with Darren Bailey, who was the Republican challenger who was running against J.B. Pritzker, constantly, talking about how it was all abortion focused, right? So there were videos of him, talking about abortion and his activism over the years. There were videos of him as a cardboard cutout popping up in a doctor's waiting room saying, "Oh, before we can do anything about your pregnancy, we've got to consult this guy first." And they just hammered that message nonstop. So I think that was part of it. But the labor ballot initiative, the thing that I found the most interesting was the Republicans tried to equate voting yes would be you were voting for higher taxes, because everyone is very sensitive here to taxes in Illinois, because we do have higher than average taxes, and it didn't work, and I thought it might, because 2 years ago we had another ballot initiative which was basically called the fair tax, which was going to right now we have a flat tax that everyone gets in the state, and it was going to, make it a progressive tax. And that, even in a really good year for Democrats, was defeated. And I thought it was simply just because they said taxes and people were so afraid of taxes. Yet the vote no thing, they said vote no for taxes, and it still passed pretty easily. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see, the states that really doubled down and went hard on a certain message. Seems to be pretty successful. I think abortion, it obviously did turn out to be a very important issue, but it was just also interesting that the tax thing didn't seem to scare people away from the Workers' Rights Amendment versus the other one that we had in the past.
How much do you think that was? How much do you think that was a function of focus by the Republicans in terms of paid media, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, they have, so one of the big donors for the Republicans in our area is a guy named, I think it's Richard Uline. He has a big, so you're aware of him.
Yes.
They blanketed everything. I mean, we were getting fake newspapers in our mailboxes every week. And it was in different counties too. So like I live in Lake County, so we were getting something called the Lake County Gazette, maybe, and then there were other, but all the collar counties around Cook were getting these fake newspapers weekly, and I mean it was news story after news story of like, look what J.B. Pritzker did here, and you're not safe because of this. So the financial resources were there. I think part of it was the messaging was not as solid. For example, in the state House race. Where we actually elected the youngest member, and I think the first Muslim woman member to the U.S. House Senate. Her name is Nabila Syed. She's 23 years old. She's really spectacular. But I guess the thing with that was, it seemed like the Republicans didn't have a good message. because they were struggling in defining her. I thought for sure they were just going to be overtly, anti-Islamic and spread that kind of rhetoric, but they didn't. But the thing that I noticed was their message kept changing. Because then what that told me was what they were seeing in their internal polling was showing that nothing was sticking.
Well, because I think part of it is what the Republicans are generally good at is nationalizing these races, and they literally never came up with any type of message other than trans stuff. They were all in on the trans stuff. I mean, they didn't push immigration. For whatever reason, they just got so enamored with the trans stuff. And it's quite clear that that it just didn't resonate with the American public, which is the only, it's the best news about all of it, is that the American public is just like, I feel like looking at the Republican Party going like, what are you talking about? I don't think they've,
right.
But I think, and so, and then the problem you have is that you haven't set the context for any of these messages to work, because all of a sudden, like, wait, are we supposed to be afraid of Muslims? I thought we were supposed to be afraid of cross-dressers. You need to set that predicate, and then so that it really is like, I think the national message takes you like 60 yards down the field, as it were. Maybe 80. You need, that extra 20 yards needs to come from like the candidate itself, but they need to fit into that narrative. And I don't think they did it. I mean, I think even though there's sort of this like generic strength from the party out of power, but really appreciate the call, CJ. Hey, this video is sponsored by Established Titles. What is Established Titles? It's a fun and novel way to preserve natural woodlands in Scotland while helping global reforestation projects. It's a project based on the old historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords or lairds and ladies in English. A title pack gets you 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland. So what happens is they plant a tree with every order. They work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. You could officially, if you wanted, to be a lord or a lady on your license, and not your license or your passport, but on things like plane tickets, or I don't know, if you're going to like a play and they ask for a suffix. Here's mine right here. I'm a lord. I also, frankly, got 2, and I'm also a lady, because you can do that. First 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link are going to be next to my plot. Within a few minutes walking distance, we could start our own kingdom, Majority Report Kingdom, with lords and ladies. If you're doing some last minute holiday shopping, this is the perfect gift. You can order a digital certificate. You can print it out all within 5 minutes. Established Titles is running a massive holiday sale right now. Plus, if you use the code MAJORITY, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/majority to get your gifts now and help support this channel.